Welcome to the Encouragement Engineering Podcast, where we help people to combat the negativity that inundates our daily lives with a positive perspective and positive action. Today's guest is Kendall Layman. Our guest today is a purpose-driven executive leader, speaker, author, and Arkansas philosopher who learned one of life's greatest lessons by being around family. One day when he arrived at the family farm and greeted his uncle, he was enlightened that there was only two types of days, good or gooder. The idea of the gooder life grew from that simple seed Kendall's Uncle Neil planted in his mind years ago. Now Kendall helps others experience a way of life that encourages you to be better today than you were yesterday. So please welcome to the show, Kendall Layman. Kendall, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
Bob, thank you so much. Good to meet you. Good to be on your show. Looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, me too. Well, let's let people know more about you, because as an Arkansas philosopher, I bet you've got a lot of insights there. Tell us about you and how you got to where you are today.
Well, it was an interesting road and one that would take more than our 30 minutes if I explained it all. But to make it, when you talk in layman's terms, as it says on the book, that's slow in Arkansas terms. You talk slowly, and people are wondering when is the next line coming. I'll try not to do that today. No, I grew up in a small town in Northwest Arkansas. Northwest Arkansas is a booming place right now, really driven by the headquarters of Walmart.
Yeah.
That's here in this corner. But I grew up in a town of 2,500. Really just wanted to work on electronics, but I'm colorblind. And so that didn't
yeah,
work
it makes
out.
it a little hard.
Yes. Went into the Air Force, and that's where I started my computer career. Lived in Tucson, Arizona for almost 9 years.
Okay.
And then decided to move back home to raise our children. And begin to work jobs here in Northwest Arkansas. You know, I've always been one of these guys that wherever I have worked, whether I've had a good leader I would consider or a bad leader, I've always taken notes mentally and sometimes physically, writing in a book of things that people do that I really like to see.
Okay.
And I always was the guy early on in my career who would say, if I ever get to be a leader, I want to do things like this person, or I don't want to do it like this person. And I tried to incorporate a lot of those things into my life. And over the years of just being able to meet some really neat people and have some really good mentors, just begin to kind of develop a style that I like to lead with. And all of that built up in my head to where one year I told my wife, I got to get all this out of my head. And I know I'm not a great writer, but maybe let's just put it in a book. And I found a great lady has a publishing company, and she helped me, and we got the book down, and it's been really fun. If I were to write the book today, it would look completely different.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably how we all are. You know, we read books, we have experiences, we have podcasts, we learn new things. And really it wouldn't be different from the standpoint of I would scrap it and start all over. I think it would be built upon and would encompass more areas. But you know, that's what life is learning every day to be different.
And that's a great, if you will, jumping off point, because not only do I look forward to the volume 2 book, if there will be, but that idea of, taking what we learn and growing on that's something I talk to different groups about as well too, because so many people forget that concept. I mean, when we were kids, we learned their ABCs in kindergarten, first grade. And we built off that to build sentences, to build structure, to, form paragraphs, etc. We build on our knowledge. And it sounds like that's something you've done, but it's a life applied growth knowledge. Would you say that would be the path?
Absolutely. I heard it said one time, and I can't remember right now where I heard it. I read it somewhere that the whole purpose of life is to learn every day how to live life.
Yeah.
And when we get to the point to where we don't have anything else to learn, then what's the point here? And
right.
So, really, I think kind of I've learned as I've gotten older, and we mature, and I like to say we get wiser, not smarter. Yeah. Wisdom is a little different than being smart at something. Wisdom comes from those experiences that we go through.
Right.
I think it's what I've learned is that every day is a learning opportunity, and we should learn. but it also gives us the opportunity to share those things we've learned with other people.
Okay.
You know, why have the experiences in our life if, number one, we're not going to learn from them, and number two, we're not going to share them with someone else so that maybe they can have some insight when they go through something in their lives.
Right.
So, you know, that's what I really try to do, is how can we affect someone else's life each day?
And that's another good point there is, and it brings me the thought of the best knowledge book, if you will, the Bible. It's got the good, the bad, the ugly, and
Yep.
it is
Yep.
that experiences of life of several people that wrote the books, and what they experienced with Jesus. And it shows you the good and the bad and what could happen. And it's a learning tool that is grown over the ages, not only for that time period, but you look at it 2,000 years later, it's still around. That's and that's something. It's what I appreciate too is your, not only the title of your book, the gooder life, and that program, if you will, but it's simple, and we complicate everything.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. That's my uncle, you mentioned my Uncle Neil. He said, Kendall, how you doing today? I said, I'm all right.
Yeah.
And he said, no, there's only two kind of days, good or gooder. And I thought about that for a long time, and I talk about this in the book. He wasn't telling me that each day you wake up and you say, okay, am I going to be good today, or am I going to be gooder today? While we might do that, it's really a mindset
Yeah.
of waking up each day and trying to be better.
Right.
But it is very simple, and that's one of the things I tell people. What I've written in this book is not new concepts.
Right.
Maybe I present them differently because I am telling them from the Arkansas philosopher way, but it's not new, and it is very simple. And the three essential attitudes that I talk about in there are being thankful, being humble, and being respectful.
Wow.
And I talk about those as just being a foundation. The people I have been around in my life that are the people that I'm drawn toward, the people I want to be with, and that could be leaders, friends, anybody.
Right.
Those people that are just thankful for the day and thankful for the things around them, those people that are just humble and are not those proud people that want to brag, and then the people that are just respectful of everyone, no matter the position that person has in life, they're respectful of them.
Right.
Those are the people that draw us to them, because they're just, that is just a foundation that we all should have to build upon.
And it's such a great foundation. I mean, in today's society, I think the idea of respect needs to be reborn, if you will, because look, regardless of your beliefs or what you do in your life, we can be respectful of each other. We all have stuff we're going through. We don't know what each other is going through necessarily. Your way isn't always better than mine. You don't know the whole story, but being respectful of each other, I think, builds that foundation that we're both human beings.
Absolutely.
And that's a great place to start. So you bring up some great points there. It's there's things we need to know of each other that are basic points, and those are some critical ones. Humbleness is it can be hard in today's society.
Absolutely, it is. That's one thing. I sat down just a few weeks ago and kind of sat down, because I've been asked on these shows, so what is the gooder life? And people are saying, what does that even mean? And I thought about it, and I was reminded of a quote that I read that said the opposite of courage is not cowardice, it's conformity. And so I thought about that. We all do things every day because that's just what we've always done.
Right.
A lot of times we don't know why we're doing something. We just kind of get into this rut. And the gooder life I talk about in the book is if you want to be set apart. And that's kind of what I'm talking about. If you want to step out of that line of conformity and be different, that takes courage.
Mm-hmm.
It takes discipline to every day get up and live with intention, to be intentional with what we do. But if we do it, it's a life of freedom.
Right.
And so I talk about the gooder life. It takes effort. You mentioned that a while ago. It takes courage. The effort is, you see a lot of people that'll say, I want to lose weight. And so they'll start that diet, and 2 weeks later it's gone.
Yeah.
That's the effort and discipline piece of saying, I want to live differently. I want to be intentional about what I do. And in 2 weeks it's gone. Well, no, it can't be. It has to become a lifestyle. And that's the gooder, making a choice every day. And then having that courage to step out and say, you know what, guys, I'm not going to do it the way I've always done it before. I'm going to be a little different here. But Bob, if we do that, I mean, the freedom that comes from that, of knowing that today I don't have to let the circumstances around me dictate what my attitude will be, won't dictate how I treat other people. I will make that decision myself, no matter what the circumstances are around me.
Right.
And when we realize that we have control of that, it's just complete, utter freedom.
Right. And that's a great idea there too, because people like the idea of freedom. They like the idea of, doing their own task, or their, whatever it may be that they desire to do. But it does, that courage it forms into, what's interesting is, you mentioned it a few times, it's a daily thing. It's not, it's small steps every day. It's a discipline. You've got to make that courage every day. And that's not always easy. It's not always fun. It's like, you get up in the morning, you can be thankful, but you've got a hard day ahead of you. Okay. But you have the ability to overcome what you have to do, and what you get to do. So
That's right.
that mindset is so critical. Is this something, I mean, you've learned this. How has it changed you? Is it something you always incorporated into your life, or has it, shifted your life for the better? How's it been for you?
I'm probably like a lot of people, where I'm great talking about something, but actually living something may be a little bit different. I'm sure, and I'm still that way. I try not to be, but I am. I'll give it one example. I talk about in the book being thankful, and I said that earlier. But I went through, all of us have different periods of life that we go through, sometimes up, sometimes down. It just kind of depends on what we're going through. And a few years ago, I was going through it wasn't terrible, but it was just things like, man, it's just really dragging me down.
Right.
And I remembered from my book about being thankful. And I tell a story in there. My son was always did good in school, and had good grades, and was a leader in his class, but he wanted to go play college football. And there was a small school in Missouri that offered him to come play. And they said, if you'll have your ACT score at a certain level, and if you do that, we can stack athletic money on top of academic money.
Right.
And so he needed like another point or something like that. And he'd been studying extremely hard, and was a bright young man, but it was just struggling on the ACT. And I found something online one day that said, have your child write down 3 things every night that they're thankful for, then study for the ACT. So I told him that. I said, what do we got to lose? We got a notebook, he got a pen. And I said, now each night it can't be the same things. It's got to be something different. He did it. He took the ACT again, and he got the point he needed.
Wow.
So I remembered that a couple of years ago when I was struggling. And so every morning I would get up, I'd open up my notebook, and I would think of 3 things that I'm thankful for. And I did that every day. And I began to see myself pull out of the hole I felt like I was in. And so I began to think, why is that? Why does it do that? Here's the only thing I could come up with. When we have bad things going on in our lives, we tend to focus on ourselves.
Yeah.
Right? Our eyes turn inward. We say, oh man, this thing is happening to me again. This is terrible. What a terrible day. I don't even want to go to work today. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. But when we're thankful, it forces us to turn our eyes around and think outwardly a little bit.
Right.
Whether it takes you 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever it takes you each day, for that amount of time, you're not focused on yourself. You're focused on other things that you're thankful for. And it's hard. Maybe I don't enjoy my job, but I'm thankful for that job.
Right.
And it's doing things like that. And I begin to see that when you change perspective, the things around me didn't change.
Yeah.
But the way I saw the things around me began to change because of a thankful attitude. And so that is one of the things that I have actually applied in my life, and it works. And so
Right.
when I speak about all this, I'll tell people, I'm going to tell you something today that if you will apply it to your life, it will change your life. I promise you it'll change your life. And because it did mine,
Yeah.
it has mine. Every day it changes mine because, you know, when I'm driving down the road and you get cut off by a car, I'm thinking, hey, like you said earlier, I don't know what's going on in that person's life.
Right.
Um, Respect,
Yeah.
being humble, being thankful, and just thinking about those things. You know, one of the principles in my book is finishing,
Okay.
and you know, that's another one. I was doing something the other day, and I told my wife, I said, I think I'm just going to do that tomorrow, and
Yeah.
she said, no, you got to finish. You're the one who wrote about it. You
Yeah.
got to finish.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's just, once again, it's just simple principles and attitudes, but I have applied them in my life. And it's that thing that just makes you think. It makes you be intentional because you think, you know, that's what I said. I better do it.
Right.
And so it actually works. And it's just simple stuff.
Yeah. It's calling yourself out and you know, doing what you say you're going to do. And what's interesting too is one of the things you mentioned, it always gets me, especially down here in Florida with the traffic. You get cut off, people don't understand how to use a turn signal, etc. But you take a second and respond to it. Don't just, you know, react to what they do, because then the hands fly. We have issues where people are shooting each other. You know, just crazy things like that. You don't need to do that. You don't know what's going on there. Like, you know, they could be trying to get to the hospital because somebody
Sure,
else is, you know,
sure.
you don't know. You're okay. It didn't hurt you. It inconvenienced you for a few seconds while you pushed the brake. But other than that, you know, be thankful you get home in one piece. You know,
That's
it's,
exactly right.
yeah,
You know, Bob, the Covey course,
yeah,
7 Habits for Highly Effective People, right?
yeah.
Um, they talk in there about that. You have a stimulus in your life and you have a response. And most of us, the stimulus and response are right next
Right.
to each other.
Yep.
But if we can separate those just a bit and have a time to think in between those,
Yeah.
our response will be completely different.
Yeah.
And you know, that's the intentional living every day of thinking about what you do before you do it.
Yeah.
Most of us don't do that. We live life where something happens and we're gonna react.
Yeah.
And it's just that, just those few seconds just to think, like you just said, to think maybe there's something going on with those people.
Yeah.
And so your response is completely different if you do that.
Yeah. Definitely. Well, moving on to you and some of your previous experience, um, because you said you were in IT and so forth.
Yes.
Did you find your experiences helped you to formulate this book to make it, if you will, more simple in your life? And, you know, because IT can be very complex, high energy, high stress level. Did that help you?
Um, I've had a great career.
Hmm.
I have loved computers and they have provided for me and my family. Um, but at the same time, I will be the first one to tell you that technology as a whole, including computers and everything, has been one of the most amazing things that's happened to our world.
Right.
And it's also been one of the worst things to happen to our world.
Hmm.
And so I think that's what it's taught me. I've learned from that technology. I love computers, and it's been amazing even since I started out as a developer.
Okay.
Actually, I started out in the Air Force as an operator of large computers,
Hmm.
mainframe computers back in the day, and then moved into becoming a developer, and then into leadership roles. And you know, the whole industry is so fast moving.
Yeah.
I like to tell people we live at the speed of Google.
Yeah.
You know, we ask a question, we want a response right now, and we want a million responses because of it. And if
Right.
we don't, I mean, think about it. We have gigabit speed internet into our homes, and it's not fast enough. But yet I remember the dial up,
Yeah.
and
Or
and
while you were
so
out pads, you know?
that's right.
Yeah. You didn't
So
have
so
to.
the changes in technology are astronomical, and they're happening at a speed we've never seen before. Yet I think sometimes it's taking us to a place we don't really want to go a lot of times.
Right.
Um, My wife and I were talking the other day about artificial intelligence. That's the big buzzword
Yep.
right now. AI, artificial intelligence, machine learning, different things like that. But we're getting to the point to where artificial intelligence is taking away the ability of us humans to think
Yeah.
and to reason and to communicate even.
Yeah.
Bob, you and I, you're in Florida, and here I am in Arkansas, and we're talking and we're looking at each other. It is fascinating. It is amazing. It's miraculous.
Yeah.
But yet we don't get to see, I can't reach out and shake your hand.
Right.
And we've lost that touch.
Yeah.
And I feel like COVID in 2020 helped pull us even further away when
Right.
we're away from the office and we're seeing people. So back to your original question, about IT. Yes, IT is it has become a necessity in the world that we live in.
Right.
Companies used to be companies that sold furniture or created widgets. Well, that's not what they are anymore. They are technology companies that sell widgets
Yeah.
or sell furniture, because we have gotten to the point where our companies can't run without technology.
Right.
That is I like to tell the people here in our company, we are the rails for which the train run on.
Yep.
If we don't take care of those rails, the train doesn't run.
Yeah.
And that's where we've gotten to with IT.
Yeah.
But it's been just an amazing journey. I'm very thankful for it. But at the same time, I can see where we really got to be careful with it.
Right. Right. And that's what's nice is, if you will, your book kind of goes back to that basics of life, that,
Right.
okay, let's, like you said, okay, we're going 900 miles a minute. Let's slow it down, but slow it down to 20 miles a minute now,
Sure.
get it back to where we can breathe. And that's important. So, question for you, because I like the, if you will, behind the scene meaning of it, of simplicity. Why do
Yeah.
you think people complicate things and make everything so, complex and forget the simple things in life?
Bob, is it habit? Maybe sometimes, I don't know. I read a story the other day about boredom, and it was talking about let your children be bored.
Uh-huh.
We have parents. My wife and I were out at a restaurant the other night, and there were two adults and two children, and they were waiting on their food to be served. And the mom had her phone turned sideways with a movie on it, propped up against the salt and pepper shaker so that the youngest child could watch it.
Right.
Keep them quiet while we're waiting on the food. We've become, that to me is complicated.
Yeah.
Instead of, how about let's
Yeah.
sit down as a family of four and talk about what's going on.
Right.
And I read that article about let your children be bored, because it's been proven that it develops cognitive functions, and you have to think, what am I going to do here? What can I do to pass time?
Yeah.
Well,
Troubleshooting skills,
exactly. But I think the same thing goes for adults.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Bob, we can't put our phones down.
Yeah.
You see a man and a wife out to the restaurant, and they're both looking at phones and never talking to each other.
Yeah. Some date night. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the simplicity is almost like taking the technology away.
Right.
And going back and going out for a walk and talking and seeing people face to face. I am a firm believer that our lives are built on relationships.
Yeah.
Relationships with our family, relationships with our coworkers, with our friends. That's what makes life deeper and more functional, is having those relationships. And the better the relationships are, the better our lives go, is
Right.
what I feel like. And I think we're losing that. And that's the complicatedness of life that we're putting into it, instead of just saying, let's just talk.
Yeah.
Let's turn the TV off. Let's turn the phones off, and
Yeah.
let's just talk. Let's play a game. My wife loves to play games. I said, I hate playing games, but let's play games. Let's go do that and have fun, because once again, as technology advances, we're losing more and more of that simplicity of life.
Right. Right. It was funny because I've noticed your Facebook page. You have a picture on there where somebody throwing a TV out the window. You know, I love that because that's what we need to do is turn off that garbage, press that big red button. You know, don't complicate our lives by the worrisome from everything all over the world that you get in 20 seconds. You focus on right here, right now.
That's
So,
right. Well, I mean, Bob, that's all we have.
yeah, right,
You
right.
know,
It's what's in front of us.
when we get right down to it, you know, I heard it said one time, be where your feet are. And I know that gets
Yeah,
repeated a lot, but where my feet are at right now with you right here, this is all we got.
right.
5 minutes ago is gone.
Yeah. Yep.
5 minutes in front of us may never happen.
Exactly.
And so we have to start appreciating each breath that we take, because
Right.
that may be it.
Wow. Great reminder for everyone. Thank you for that because we definitely need that. So
And I need it too. Hey, once again, I'm great at telling it to you, but I
yeah,
have to think about it too.
yeah, you learn as you preach, if you will. Well, Kendall, where can people find out more about you, to follow you? How can they get a hold of you? Tell us that.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, I have the Facebook page, I have the LinkedIn page. I have a couple times a week put out a little quote or something, just trying to encourage people.
Right.
There's also www.thegooderlifegroup.com, and they can contact me through a contact page there. I've spoken a lot of different places at universities. That's what I love to do, is do what we're doing right here.
Yeah.
You know, I tell people I'm not a Pulitzer Prize winner. I didn't plan on that. I'm not the great author that writes these books that you want to just read every day. I don't feel like I am. I've had a lot of people say, man, I love the book. But what I say is the content is good and it's
Right.
solid. And I am much better at communicating that, I believe, in speech. And
Right.
so this is what I love to do. And so if somebody wants to call me and say, hey, can you come speak to our group? I don't care if it's one person or 1,000 people. It doesn't matter to me.
Right.
It's just what I love to do. John Maxwell says that, you know, if you're going to speak about something, it's got to be part of you. You got to believe in it.
Right.
And then it really, you can touch people.
Yeah.
And so I like to say, you know, I'm an evangelist for the gooder life, which is what you have said here. It's just a simple way of life with simple principles and attitudes that will absolutely change the way we see the world around us.
Wow. Well, great. Kendall, thank you so much for informing us today, enlightening us, giving us the encouragement we needed for, what we want to do in our life. Really appreciate that. I appreciate you being a guest on the Encouragement Engineering podcast. So thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and I've loved being here.
Great. Well, thanks you, Kendall. I appreciate it. You have a great one.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.